Hey everybody, it's Mr. Fox here with a little bit of a different video for the channel today. Something you may have seen on the channel is that I'm a big Civilization 6 fan. I've been a fan of that game for a couple of years now. Came out back in 2016, which was like, I don't know, 24 or so years ago, if I remember correctly. And Civilization 6 has become a pretty damn good game over the last couple of years. Between the expansion packs and the patches and the DLC and everything else, it's really worth playing. But that being said, it's not the only 4X Civilization style game that's out there. And one thing I've noticed is that the very, very good, but in my opinion, underappreciated Old World is really a worthwhile next game to pick up if you're a fan of Civilization 6. And so today's video is about making that transition, going from Civ 6 to Old World, taking the lessons that you've learned from Civ 6 and applying them to a different style of game, as well as noticing what's different between the two so that you can better apply strategies and succeed. So I've got a brand new game loaded here of Old World, and I'm going to walk you through 5 major differences between Civilization 6 and Old World. Not just 5 differences, but really 5 things that you should think about, perspectives even on the way the game is created. So first we're going to start, we've launched a game as Babylonia. We're playing as the standard leader, King Nebuchadnezzar. In Old World, just like in Civilization, every nation has a leader, but unlike Civilization, you have the option of randomly generating your leader at the start of the game and selecting their focus, their job, their archetype, I guess is what they're called. So Nebuchadnezzar is a scholar. We'll talk plenty more about the people, I guess the members of your court, but we'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to start, though, with a discussion on resources. You can see here that I have this first city, and I have the options to settle our city and select our family. Families there are 4 for each civilization, and when you found a city, you decide which family will own that city, which will it be dedicated to, and each family rather, has their own specialization that makes them good at creating certain kinds of cities. We're not going to get into too much of that here. We're going to start here. I just found a landowner capital. I'm not even going to go into explaining what it is that I'm going to do. I'm just going to select the tech sort of at random here because I just wanted to found the city so we can start talking about resources. The resources appear in this top center bar. If you, at a quick glance, they look probably very familiar. You've got the coin represents money, the apple represents food, the metal represents iron and other metals. Stone is stone. The tree is wood. And these are orders. Practically everything you do in Old World requires orders. This is one of the biggest differences between Old World and Civilization. In Civilization, every unit has their own set of moves. Once you've exhausted their moves, you can't use that unit anymore. That is true of Old World in that you can see those little dots represent the fatigue of the unit. That's how many times the unit can move in a single turn. However, I only have 7 orders, so even though I could move this unit 3, this unit 4, and this unit 3, that'd be 10 total moves, I can't do that on turn 1 because I don't have the orders for it, which you've probably known if you've played the game. Now, these resources here in the center left side are what I call consumption resources. These are the resources that are consumed by a couple of things. One, they're consumed by cities, units, and improvements. As you can see here, I'm burning -5 food per turn. The city of Babylon requires 2 food, and the units require 3 as well. So I'm losing 5 per turn. Now, these are also the resources that are also consumed when you create units. So as you notice here, an archer, for example, requires 150 wood. That would be consumed when you start creating the unit. If you cancel the unit before it's finished, you'll get those resources back. But unless you have sufficient resources, you won't even be able to start building it. So these are the resources, again, that are consumed, right? So you need 150 wood to create an archer. But it also knows it says production 120 and then that red shield icon. That represents training. These 3 represent a different kind of resource, perhaps a a production resource as opposed to a consumption resource. These are resources that are produced each turn by your cities and the members of your court. As you can see here, Babylon is providing 8 civics, as well as my wife, Queen Consort Amethyst, who has 3 charisma. She's also contributing to our civics. Civics is the production resource for people, namely specialists within your improvements. We don't have any improvement yet, so we can't start building any specialists, but we could do city projects. These are kind of like buildings in Civilization 6 in that they upgrade the city themselves and they generate something each turn. Now, they're not exactly like buildings in Civilization because you can build them multiple times. There's for every stage of cultural development of your city, you can build another level of these main infrastructures. So Treasury 1, once you built it, it gives you 100 money on completion, plus 10 money every turn. And then there's some other additional bonuses that depend on what civilization you're playing. There's a lot going on in the tooltips here. So here's tip number 1 for Civilization players. If you click your middle mouse button, or I think it's hold shift, you can mouse into these sort of nested tooltips. So then you can mouse over things to find out what these each mean. So as I'm playing as Babylonia, if I were to build a treasury, in addition to its 10 gold per turn, 10 money per turn, it would also generate 2 culture per turn. That's exclusive to Babylon. No other civilization does that. Each civilization in this game are pretty similar comparatively to, say, Civilization 6, but when we start talking about things like unique units, they get a little bit different. So let's go ahead and start talking a bit more about improvements, which is a huge part of the game. So you'll notice that I have -5 food. None of these tiles in my empire that are controlled by this city, none of these tiles are producing food except this wheat tile here. So a tile that hasn't been improved won't actually produce any resources. In Civilization 6, you have to assign an individual population to work a tile, and then that tile produces resources from that tile. In Old World, you automatically work all workable tiles in your city's control, but you can improve the amount of that each tile generates considerably by improving them using workers. So this gold resource over here, as you can see, it's providing +5 money every turn just by being in my borders. However, if I were to put a mine on it, you'll see down here that it will increase the amount of gold by an additional 40. So if I were to send this worker here and click mine, it'll begin building the mine. But I don't actually want to do that. And that's another amazing thing that's different about Civilization 6 from Old World, is that there is an undo button. This undo button right there will let you undo your moves in case you change your mind. It's really important because of the order system, right? If you accidentally misclick, not only do you not get to do anything else with that unit, but now you've spent an order that you can't use to do something else. So while there is a difficulty mode that disables the undo button, it is available by default. I'm actually going to go over here, though, and demonstrate that depending on what the resource on the tile is, the yields can change pretty dramatically. So if we put a mine over here, as you saw, we would get +40 gold, right? Over here on this mine, on this ore, you get +2 training, the production resource for military units, as well as 16 metal, which is the consumption resource primarily used by military units. Now let's go ahead and get that started for the sake of our demonstration here. So it'll take 4 semesters or 4 turns. You can, when you create the game, you can decide whether or not the turns are measured in semesters or they're measured in years. I'm playing on semesters, so it'll take 4 semesters for this worker to finish construction on this mine. Once the mine is completed, then we'll start generating these additional resources, namely 2 training and 16 metal. That's how you improve territory. Let's go ahead and see what else is going on. There's always these events that come up. While in Civilization 6 you might get events in a sense, in that you find a tribal village and you get a bonus, or you meet another civilization and there's a sort of diplomatic exchange that happens right up front. In Old World, however, you have these events. They're represented by the exclamation point icon, and they will come up all the time, unless you turn them off or turn them down quite a bit. And a lot of the unexpected parts of this game occur in those events. So I discovered a new resource. You can see here that this was incense. And because it's not in my territory, it's not producing any resources for me. But I am going to park my scout on it so I can show you what you can do next turn. I'm going to end the semester to start a new turn to refresh my orders. Now I have 8 orders. Last turn I used 1 to found my city. And you can see here that a scout, as well as the settlers and worker units, can harvest resources. If a resource is outside of your control, you can spend an order to harvest it. In this case, harvesting incense will grant +8 culture to my nearest city, in this case, Babylon. Unlike civilization, that does not remove the resource forever. In fact, it just puts a cooldown on it, where every semester it rolls a dice, 1d10, and it basically has a 10% chance to regenerate. Let's go ahead and keep exploring to the south here. We actually have a city site over here. This is probably the next biggest difference between Old World and Civilization 6. In Old World, you can only settle on city sites. That means you can clear out barbarian camps to create an empty city site, or you can discover these empty city sites on the map. Once a settler reaches that tile, or actually reaches any urban tile, you'll notice that this tile here has these 2 tiles actually have these sort of representation of humans living there at some point. You can settle a city anywhere on the urban tiles. Some city sites you'll find will have more urban tiles than others, which is actually a benefit that we'll talk about a little bit later on. Now seems like a good time to talk about our members of our court, because while in Civilization you've got great people that you recruit and then consume or allow them to lead your armies, right, in the case of great generals, but typically speaking they are few and far between, and they are generally at some point going to be consumed. In Old World, the characters that you have will be around for a while, because they can be assigned a couple different jobs. Most people can be assigned to be a governor of a city, which basically provides additional yields, bonuses, as well as, most importantly, I think, XP per turn, or XP per semester for that character. As characters gain experience, they level up, they improve their traits. We'll talk about that as we move forward. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign King Nebuchadnezzar. You notice it takes 2 orders and 100 civics, right? Civics, while being a production resource, in that it's needed to produce specialists, it also can be used, it can be consumed to pass laws, as well as appoint governors, as well as the other key jobs. So as you move through the tech tree, you'll unlock the ambassador, the chancellor, and the spy master, who can all are positions that can be occupied by members of your court. So we choose King Nebuchadnezzar, he becomes governor of Babylon, and now he's always providing bonuses by simply being a member of the court. But now by also being a governor, he's increasing the quality of the city, namely by increasing the science by 20% based upon his wisdom stat, which is this icon right here. I don't really know why it's a purple horned face represents intelligence, but hey, I guess because oftentimes the smartest people in the past did the most terrible things. They're just so creative with their infamous terrible things. All right, let's go ahead and just harvest 1 more incense, move on to the next turn. I don't plan on playing out this whole game by any means, but I do want to demonstrate some of the different functions within the game. This is the other major sort of path that characters move through, is that your direct lineage, right? Any children that your leader has will become members of your court automatically. Once they reach a certain age, namely 10, you decide which area of study that they will focus on. that gives them a little bonus to whichever starting stat is most relevant to that archetype. And then when they finish their, 8 years or so of schooling, which has, it has its own events with it that come along, at the very end, you'll get to choose from one of a couple of possible jobs, archetypes that this character will get. So my daughter is already a schemer. I don't really know how that happened. It must be because it's because I'm playing as the default, right? I'm playing as King Nebuchadnezzar, who starts with his own existing family. So she's a schemer. So that means it would make sense for her to follow whichever one of these paths right here, tactics or commerce, both create schemers. If I wanted to change her job, I could. But since she's getting those +4 wisdom, I'm actually going to go ahead and select philosophy to make her study philosophy like her daddy, so that perhaps she'll become a scholar as well. Let's see. We've got workers working here 1 turn until we finish our settler. You notice the settler costs 100 food, but requires 80 growth. Growth is the one resource we have not yet talked about because it doesn't show up here on this top bar. Instead, it only appears up here in the section of the city. So growth produces citizens. Citizens, you can see, are listed down here. And citizens are required to create specialists. So, for example, when we finish this mine, we can hire a miner that will work in the mine. We'll talk about what that does in a minute, or rather when we finish. And to train him will require civics. But in order to get that citizen, we needed growth. Now, these civilian units, the worker, the scout, and the militia can be upgraded to better forms of militia, but they are effectively citizen military units. So they cost growth instead of training to create. They can defend your territory, and they also count as friendly military units for the purposes of preventing discontent, which is like happiness in amenities, like in Civilization 6. Amenities is a similar function. We call it discontent in an old world. It's not that important. There are a lot of different ways to manage your discontent, so we're not going to worry about it too much right now. What we care about, though, is that these 3 units require that growth production resource. The growth resource comes from improved food resources. So, for example, this wheat farm down here, rather this wheat tile, if we were to put a farm on it, it would grant us more food, but it would also grant us more growth. You'll also notice that in this particular instance, it's granting plus 20 money. That's because that this city is owned by a landowner family. That's one of the bonuses of the landowner family, is that crop resources, like wheat, produce money once they've been improved. There's also these furs up here. These are improved by camps. Those will give us food as well as culture, because it is a luxury resource. Let's go ahead and just... I'm just going to end the turn. Even though I have all these orders, I don't really care right now. This is just a demonstration game. Now we have our settler finished, so we can send our settler over to this city-state. There's also this force march option. I'm gonna show this because I'm gonna show you the main uses of training now. So training as a resource, as we learned, can be used to build military units. Military units, besides civilians, require training each turn. They also can be used to do what's called force march. A force march allows a unit to move while fatigued. So in this case, I can't quite get my settler to this city site, but if I were to force march and then move, I can make it there in a single turn. Now I get to decide which family this city will belong to. I'm going to select the clerics, because upon finding the cleric seat, you'll also discover a religion. You get monasticism right away, and then you get a religion, in this case, Judaism. Here we have another event. This is the first meeting with another civilization. Whenever you first meet a civilization, just like in Civ 6, you have an opportunity to sort of decide how the initial diplomatic discussions go. Civ 6, you can spend 25 gold to send a delegation to a civilization to improve your diplomatic relations. In Old World, you can decide from different options. So what we could do is get 20 opinion from Persia by helping out. We could spend 75 of our training to negotiate protection of goods to gain 270 money. Or we can kill the Persians to gain that 460 money, almost twice as much, but lose 20 opinion. Let's go ahead and just take that, kill the Persians, and steal their cargo. So there's not going to be like any instant ramifications. Some missions do have like later down the line, something else can happen. That one's not one of them. It's just going to be that we have our initial meeting with King Cyrus is such that he does not like us. We are close to him, and he's a hero, so he likes to fight. We sacked his caravan. So needless to say, we are not friends. Odds are a war is going to break out sooner or later between Persia and ourselves. But we're not too worried about that because, again, we don't really care all that much. One more turn, we'll have the mine done. So I'm actually just going to pick council for one turn. This is not something I would recommend. I'm just doing it because I want my city to be busy. And what that does is just increases the amount of civics, training, and money produced by the city on that turn. It may be at some point the smartest thing you can do, but not very often. Here we have an event. This is the case of Judaism being founded in my city by founding a city that was led by the clerics. We got a religion. Now, we have a couple options, just like with the event with Persia. We can improve our relationship with the religion at the cost of some civics. We can gain some civics, or we can lose opinion and gain legitimacy. Legitimacy is actually a very important stat. It's basically generated by doing stuff, right? As you complete the ambitions that your character has, as you complete certain events, usually being brave and standing up to other civilizations gives you legitimacy, while giving into demands tends to take it away. But what's important, though, is that every 10 legitimacy grants you an additional order. So that's one of the main ways to increase your orders, is to increase your legitimacy. So I could do that and gain an additional 0.2 orders per turn, which would round me up to the extra. So it would be getting 2 orders per turn. But actually what I'm going to do here is just to demonstrate. I'm going to invite the leaders to court to increase our relationship. So as you can see here, each Jewish city will gain +2 culture per turn. There's a 13% chance each turn that Judaism will spread to another city. And as we improve our opinion with Judaism, and as well as the people who happen to be in control of it. Right now, there isn't a leader of Judaism yet. There will be soon. It's likely to be whoever the leader of the Kassite family is. But improving their opinion of you will in turn improve the religion's opinion of you. Religions are actually really cool. So they allow you to make the disciple unit. All the religions have the same disciples practically, right? What a disciple can do is they can build 3 different types of buildings: monasteries, temples, and cathedrals. They also can build what's like a religious wonder. It's a small wonder that you can only build in the holy city of that religion, the city where it was founded. And those miniature wonders, like the Temple of Solomon for Judaism, they all do the same thing, which is they increase the amount of culture generated by that city by a percentage, which again, culture is this bar that fills up. Once it fills up, you move up a culture level, you get a positive event that happens, and it unlocks the next tiers of projects, as well as the next tier of urban improvements, which we will talk about shortly. In fact, let's talk about it now. The Jewish monastery is an urban improvement. What urban improvements they're improvements that, generally speaking, need to be put adjacent to at least the city itself, right? This is the city tile, or adjacent to 2 non-city urban tiles, right? So that means I could build, say, an Odeon, which is the, let's get the tech tree here. Oops. The tech tree here. An Odeon is the first building of the culture buildings, right? There's the Odeon, the theater, and the amphitheater. We could build an Odeon here to increase the culture of this town. And then we could build a different urban improvement right here, because we would now have two adjacent to it, right? You'd have this one plus this one, so you could build there as well. Monasteries are different because they are build anywhere improvements, which means that you don't need to be next to an urban tile, and that makes them really useful for spreading your cities out, right? Monasteries also, they produce more science. Let's go ahead and look at the monastery. The monastery is unlocked at monasticism. The monastery produces +2 science, but it also has its production boosted by 60% for each adjacent grove. A grove is the improvement that is built on top of resources like incense. So now we have come to what I believe to be this closest similarity between Old World and Civilization 6, and that is that adjacencies matter a lot, right? Adjacency means what's next to the building. So if you were to put a monastery here and then improve these two incense with groves, it would improve the generation of that one monastery by 120%. Temples are boosted by nearby monasteries, and so on. So you end up making these cool little complexes of religious buildings. Those religious buildings, in addition to improving your relationship with the religion themselves, right? Each turn generates more religion. You can build specialists on these tiles as well, these urban specialists that will produce some really helpful resources. It also, religions also have these, where are they? Yeah, these are laws, but there are also, they've recently changed them. So now they require technology to unlock. Here it is. These are called theologies. So dualism, for example, requires the tech rhetoric. And dualism is a tier 2 theology. That means that a disciple can basically edit that religion, give it a new bonus. It's a lot like using the evangelists in Civilization 6 to add another bonus to your religion. Or if you think about when you first create a religion in Civilization 6, you get to decide what your different beliefs are, right? Your founder belief. This is kind of like that, in that it requires a disciple, it consumes the disciple, and then it gives you bonuses. So, for example, dualism increases the likelihood that Judaism, if for example, would spread to other cities by 5%. It also gives each city that is following Judaism +1 science per semester per religion in that city. So dualism, as the name implies, creates benefits when there are more than one religion in a city. You also get -1 discontent from every temple. The temple being the second religious building. It's unlocked here at Doctrine. It produces culture and some orders, and it is boosted by adjacent monasteries. So again, you'll end up a lot of times clustering your religious buildings together, but of course you can't build religious buildings of other religions adjacent to a different religion. So you can't build, say, a Jewish monastery and a Christian monastery right next to it because, I don't know, the monks don't get along, I guess. Whatever, what do you want? So that's how religion works in this game. And that's, I think, another big difference, is that religion is not what you think, right? In Civilization 6, religion is so important, it's actually a win condition, right? If you convert enough of the world to your religion, you win the game. Old World doesn't treat religion quite that seriously. Religion is really more of like a second layer of diplomacy, right? It's like an additional nation that has its own desires, it has its own goals, right? The head of the religion will often impact your ambitions. They'll say, hey, we want you to go out and, spread Judaism to 4 cities, or we want you to build 4 Jewish monasteries. And if you do that, you complete an ambition, which then gives you, of course, legitimacy as well as these victory points, which are one of the ways to end the game. Again, this doesn't really, unlike Civilization 6, Old World doesn't really have multiple win conditions. Yes, there are, right? You can win through score by having more than twice anybody else. You can win by ambitions by being the first one to complete, I think it's 10 ambitions. You can win by conquering all the cities, right? There are different ways to win, but generally speaking, it's more or less the same. There's no science victory, there's no culture victory, there's no religion victory. And so, with that thought, each civilization is going to play pretty similarly to one another. You're not gonna completely change your game plan because you've changed which civilization you're playing as. So here's an example of one person in my court. This is Ninsunu the hero, who is apparently in love with me. Oh, that's nice. And this person is a hero. It means that they can be a general. Or an agent. An agent is like a spy. Speaking of generals, let's demonstrate that real quick. You can spend 100 of your training to assign a general. Just like being a governor of a city, being a general gives that person XP per turn. It gives them it gives the unit boosted stats, in this case 15% attack strength, because she has +4 to the courage stat, right? Because she's a hero, she also gains the bonus heal in neutral territory. So if we go ahead and select that, it'll put this unit on cooldown. We can't move him this turn, but now from now on, this unit's going to gain experience each turn, as well as experience during combat, as well as possibly can be involved in new events. We've finished our mine here in the city of Babylon. Let's take a look at the specialist feature. So here we have the ability to build a miner. You'll notice it shows the civics icon here because it will require 20 civics to build. I'm making 8 civics per turn in this town, so that means that it's going to take 3 turns. It means if I could bump up my civics to 10 civics per turn, it would only take 2 turns to build this. Civics are generated through the forum, right? If we finish a forum, we'll get +1 civics every turn, as well as stone cutters, which are the specialists that you build in quarries, also produce civics, particularly if they're built on marble. Now I'm going to go ahead and say yes to this. And something you may have noticed is that it showed that in the preview that this tile will belong to me. That's because building a specialist of any kind, whether it's an urban specialist or a rural specialist, a miner is a rural specialist. As you can see, it gives +1 science simply by existing, +1 training but for being a miner. So that means that even a gold miner will produce one training. And then because it's a miner on an ore mine, it will produce an additional 1 training, and then it will actually increase the amount of metal produced by 50% as well. So by adding a miner, we're going to increase the amount of training and metal produced by this mine. That makes ore mines in particular, really, really useful for anyone that's trying to build military units, because you need to spend iron to make most units, and you need to use training to produce them. So an ore mine is an ideal military improvement. Actually, you know what? Let's going to go ahead and cancel that. Let me see. Do I have the ability to make any urban improvements? The only one I can right now is the stronghold, and that requires 4 active laws. That's also, the stronghold is also what unlocks your first unique unit for your civilization, is when you build your stronghold. So there's an argument to be made that rushing 4 laws, so you can see here, this is how you enact the laws. They are unlocked. The ability to unlock them is unlocked through technology, and then you spend 400 civics to enable a law. So for example, right now I could pick epics or exploration. Epic says that when you kill a military unit, you gain +2 culture in the nearest city, because, you know, they're telling stories about the great wars and the great battles going on nearby. Exploration gives bonus movement along neutral rivers. So if there's a river in your home territory, you move along it like it's a road. And then if it's outside of your home territory, I don't believe it gives any sort of bonus movement, unless you have exploration. It also allows scouts to move on water, which will allow scout units to embark into the shallow parts of the ocean to go and discover new lands. You'll also notice that it affects the opinions of the hunter family, for example, whereas this one will affect the opinion of any heroes. There are also events that will only allow you to pick certain options depending on your laws. We also have the option for monotheism or polytheism. We unlocked this when we got monasticism for choosing the cleric family. And monotheism, you get an additional 1 semester per city that is following your state religion. So you have to pick a state religion, which we don't currently have one. And then every city that's following that religion generates an additional order. The other option is to do polytheism, which will allow you to build shrines in every city. Shrines are a urban improvement that are unlocked. They're unlocked, where are they? Divination, which is one of the first tier techs. And what shrines are is they are urban improvements, so they claim territory. They need to be built adjacent to cities, or maybe they don't. Maybe they can be built anywhere. I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter right now. Each one produces something different. Each one enables... These are also unique to each civilization. This is actually one of the biggest differences between civilizations, is which shrines they have, although they are more or less different. They're variations of the same ones, more or less. Like the Shrine of Hades for Greece, I think, is identical to the Shrine of Ereshkigal. So these shrines can be built they can build each shrine once, unless you enact polytheism, and then you can build each shrine once in each city. Building shrines also creates a new religion. So you notice here, this is how you can tell that there's a religion being followed here. Let's go look at Persia. So Persia does not have a religion yet. So this is where the Jewish holy city. Now, if I were to build a shrine in any of my cities, sooner or later, Babylonian paganism will be found, right? So there's a pagan religion that every civilization can also find, Babylonian paganism, Roman paganism, Greek paganism, whatever, by building shrines. And it does count as a separate religion. You can't make it your state religion unless you pass a certain law. But it does count as a religion for things like dualism. Let's see, we got some events. Here's an event. Because there is we have a religion, we have the option to convert. Might as well do it. So here's an example of how which families you pick will dictate which ambitions you are offered. So these are ambitions. This is the main way of winning the game. So either control 4 farmer specialists, so build 4 farms and then put 4 specialists on them, or control 4 cities. So we're going to pick control 4 cities. That one's a bit easier. Well, let's go ahead and load a game where we are at war, because that's the other major difference. Okay. So let's talk about war. I've gone ahead and loaded a game that I've recently finished. As you can see, Ambition. Egypt has won a victory. I am not done, so we can keep playing. Okay. So this is a recently won game that I was playing when I was playing as Egypt. As you can see, I have a lot of cities. We're not going to go over there. We're going to look over here where we're currently sieging Persia. The reason we're going to look at this is because combat, war in Old World is, in my opinion, the biggest, most ambitious, most significant difference between Civilization 6 and Old World. And while Civilization 6 has a lot of different units that do more or less the same thing, in Old World, units are much more specialized. So in addition to the leader you can add as a governor, in addition to the promotions that you take, right? So this is, for example, this horseman is especially good against other mounted units because of his promotions. But there's more than that, okay? A lot of units do interesting things. Elephants, for example. Let's go ahead and move one here. Let's force march him. Move him one more time. Let's see if we can force this. So you see that says panic? That's because this infantry unit, this slinger, is being attacked by a war elephant. Elephants are special. Elephants, when they attack a unit, cause them to panic and run in the opposite direction. Why is that useful? Well, for example, this tile is a garrison. it increases the defensiveness of any unit standing on it. So by using the elephant to push the unit off of a defensive tile, we are more able to control the battlefield. Here's another example. This is a spearman, a poleman, a pikeman in this case. Pikemen, as in many games, are designed to be anti-mounted, right? They do bonus melee damage against mounted units. However, they also have things like, where is it? Pierce 2. This means that when a polearm unit attacks a unit, it deals damage to the units behind it. The attack pierces through. That's also a feature of the ballista class unit, which we have over here, right? It's ranged, but it also has pierce, so that means that its bolts pass through targets and damage the targets behind them. Siege weapons move faster when they're on the roads. They do bonus damage against urban, and they have splash. So wherever they attack, it damages the tiles around it. Starting to see, right? So now you can position your siege weapons, hit everybody with splash, bring in your polemen, stab them from the sides to deal damage to those in a line, and then send in your cavalry to finish them off, because cavalry, melee cavalry, have a bonus called rout. That's this right here. And what that means is if they kill a unit, if they get the killing blow, let's see if we can kill this. Let's see if we can kill this this camel in one turn. So let's see if we can do that. So we'll attack in here, move this unit here, we'll attack in here, bring this horse archer here, we'll attack with him here. I don't know if we can do it. I don't know if we can come up with that much damage in a single turn, so that's okay. What happens, though, is that when a melee mounted unit, which includes the chariots, get the last hit on an enemy unit, they rout, causing them to move onto the enemy's tile, and then immediately resetting their attack cooldown so that they can attack again. And this is where Old World really starts to show its war game central, that gooey, meaty center at the middle of this game is a good war game. Because think about it. If you do control your units well, if you use your elephants to force units into a cluster, smash them with your splash damage, stab them with your piercing, and then send in your horsemen to clean them up, you can extremely efficiently kill off units without spending all of your orders, without using too much of your army's health. It's a really, really fun and thoughtful combat system. In this particular playthrough, this last war, I came into Persian territory. I took some cities off of him, and I was pillaging all of his stone mines to finance my wonders, because I wanted to make some awesome wonders. This is a game where I actually managed to do a lot of religious play. As you can see here, the city of Bedet has 4 religions in it. That's some of these different religious buildings. There's a monastery here. There's a library, right? And we didn't talk about it in our previous look, but here are what specialists look like at higher level. So here's a master poet. This is the culture specialist, so it'll be on the Odeon, the theater, or the amphitheater. He's producing culture. He's producing civics per citizen. So remember, there's that citizen yield, right? So if you don't have any reason to be making more, consuming your citizens, the master, the top level specialists, like master poet, produce yields per citizen. So by having a master poet in this city and 5 citizens, he's producing an additional 2.5 civics, which is not bad at all, considering this entire city is producing 40 in this very, very late game. We have a bunch of specialists built here on these fishing tiles, producing all sorts of yields. And as you can start to see, Old World is a game about tiles. It's a lot like Civilization 6 in that respect, right? It's about spreading your cities out. It's about surrounding urban improvements in tiles that boost them. So for example, here I have a town, which is the village and the hamlet. It's a money generating tile improvement. And if it is adjacent to the culture buildings, they boost each other. So for example, this amphitheater is producing 7 culture, negative 2.8 discontent, and it's costing me 4 stone per year. Little things like the fact that putting a religious unit on top of an improvement can give you bonuses as well. So for example, you'll notice down here it says, oh, this is a shrine. So here he is on a Jewish cathedral. It says Jewish disciple +1 order. I'm gaining an additional order by simply having a disciple parked on this cathedral tile. Very cool stuff. In general, you want to surround tiles with like tiles, right? Farms boost each other, mines boost each other, quarries boost each other. You build quarries next to mountains, you get extra stone. You build mines on hills, you get extra metal. You build farms next to water, you get extra food, right? You got to put some thought into where you place your stuff, because it can make or break the amount of stuff you're generating in your civilization. I think that's about it. I think that's where we'll leave it. Maybe this will get edited and uploaded to YouTube. Maybe I'll do some cool graphics in there. Who knows? Regardless, thanks for joining me. And if you thought this content was interesting, if you are a Civilization 6 fan and you want to know what other games are out there that you might like, or if you're an old world fan who now, you've been looking for content creators, I know there's not many people making stuff for this game. And so if you're interested, if you want content, let me know in the comments, like this video, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. So thank you so much. Have an awesome day and be excellent to each other.